Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Richardson's Rubicon podcast, season 2, Escape to Everquest. My name is John Richardson. This episode's quite a good one. I quite enjoyed it. We get introduced to a person called Glumf, who holds a fantastic record of being tolerated throughout Norrath on P99 Green, which is an amazing faction achievement. We also go into things like, is Platinum worth it? We also talk about the UN, which I just heard about in the last couple of weeks, so I was quite curious. And we also talk about zone experience modifiers as well. So that's a few things that are popping up in the episode. I would also like to give a correction, really. So in one of our previous episodes, when I was talking to Joe Ned, somehow we convinced ourselves that the Necromancer epic was two-handed, and this actually came up in conversation in guild just a couple of days ago, and someone was saying, is the Necro epic worth it? And everyone was saying, well, it's all right, but it's a lot of work to get. And me, based on the episode I had with Joe, basically piped up in guild chat, well, it's a two-hander. Why would you want a two-handed epic? You're losing a space. And everyone just turned around and said, you're crazy. What on earth are you talking about? And I was like, no, this is true. And they're like, no, it's definitely one-handed. And I looked it up, and there it was. It was absolutely one-handed. So I don't know how that happened. We managed to convince ourselves the Necro Epic was two-handed. So I apologize most profusely for that. And obviously correcting the record now. And that's it, really. Things are happening in game. I am actually proceeding with my hammer to over there quest at the moment. That's what I'm busy doing at the moment, and I'm just having a ball, really. It's all great fun. So anyway, here's the interview I've got with Glumf coming up, and if you want to be interviewed as well, all you need to do is head over to richardsonsrubicon.com and book yourself in. It's harmless, it's easy to do, it's free, and I look forward to hearing from you. After these one or two announcements, we're going straight into the interview with Glumf. Fascinating stuff.
Hi there. Why don't you send in your confessions to the Richardson's Rubicon podcast? I can't wait to hear what you've been up to, my cuddly little neckbeard. Visit richardsonsrubicon.com/confessional.
Are you tired of modern online games with their flashy graphics and hand-holding tutorials? Do you long for the days when adventure meant braving the perils of Norrath with nothing but your wits and a rusty sword? Well, dust off your spellbook, gird your loins, and prepare for a blast from the past with Project 1999's Classic Everquest. Dive into the nostalgic world of Classic Everquest, where the pixels are big, the challenges are bigger, and the loot is still pretty pixelated, but oh so satisfying. Join thousands of fellow adventurers in this authentic recreation of Everquest, just as it was in 1999. No microtransactions, no hand-holding, no pay-to-win. Just pure, unadulterated nostalgia. And death. Lots of death. So what are you waiting for? Embark on the ultimate retro gaming experience where your epic quests await. Project 1999. Because sometimes the classics are just better. Visit project1999.com to start your adventure today.
Take part in the show, book yourself in, and have your say. We'd love to hear from you. Visit richardsonsrubicon.com.
Hello, my name is John Richardson, and I'm joined today by Glumf, who is fully non-cost in every starting city, as well as Surefall Glade, Highkeep, Outpost, Firioni V, is that how you say it? I don't even know. Kedjek Village, Kera Isle, and Chardok, and it's a Project 1999 first. Here's Glumf. Hi, Glumf, how are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Yes, that took a little bit of time to go through all those factions and make sure that they tolerate me there, but it was worth it.
How long did that take?
Well, let's put it this way. There's a couple quests in the game that take a long time, and obviously the epic is known to be one of them. The ring and shawl quests, so to Coldane, those both take an extremely long time. Shawl, especially before the patch came through, where you get some of the threads in Velks a little bit quicker. Spirit Rack Chords is a long quest. Strength of the Elements takes a long time to get. Spirit of Garzakor is a long quest, and the Epic. So I've done all of those, and the faction guide probably took me far longer than all of those combined. So it's
Wow.
a lot of time has been put into that for sure.
Wow. Excellent. That's brilliant. I mean, there's a whole wiki page here on the P99 wiki, isn't there? All about faction that you wrote.
I did. Yes. So it goes through pretty much, every single faction in the game is covered. Whether I go into detail about how to raise it or not is one thing. I would say the vast majority of the ones that you can raise are discussed in there. There's a few that unfortunately are just unraisable. So I've got a list at the bottom of the ones that you can't raise. But
yeah, I saw that.
Every faction in the game is in there in one capacity or another.
Wow, brilliant. Family faction?
That's right. Even includes wife factions. I put in my guide, I can't help you raise that one. I think that P99 is probably not great for that faction.
Yeah, you've got to deal with that issue yourself, haven't you?
That's exactly that. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, then, Glenn, for the audience.
Sure. I'll give you a bit of my background, my Project 1999 background. So I started up when, I don't know what year it was, probably 2018. Played a little bit on Blue, and didn't get very far. Got to 50 something. Joined a guild called Dawn Believers. I just didn't really click for me. Played for let's call it a year. Took a little bit of a break after that, and when they released Green, I came back and joined. I was with SEAL Team in Green for pre-Kunark. And then before Kunark came out, my wits got the best of me, and I said, okay, well, I'm dumping an awful lot of time into this game. Might as well take a break. So I left for all of Kunark and came back into when Velius had just started up. And that was when things got real in the raiding space, and joined a guild. So I made Glumf and was recruited by Fires of Heaven. And
right.
Yeah, so they were around then. Those guys have been around for a very long time. They've recently rebranded to simply Fires. But I joined Fires of Heaven. You had to be 46 to join, I think it was. Right. So being a level 46, I wanted to get my epic. So I was excited to get in there and join a guild and compete for. I play a shaman, so we needed to go to Fear, and I had an agenda of things I wanted to accomplish, and the epic being one of them. So I'd talk to some people in the guild and be like, "Hey, are we planning to go to Fear at any point?" And Fires at that point, they're a little bit more active now, but they weren't really raiding a ton. They do. I think they had a Sunday morning Kale event. They'd go into the Kale arena, and kill in there. And I was just getting impatient. I was biting at the bit to get raiding. And I think the guild leaders there kind of caught wind of that. So when I asked if we were going raiding, they were like, okay, relax. You just joined. This game is a marathon, not a sprint. You don't need to get it right away. Anyways, I must have pissed off the wrong people, because they said, hey, we don't like how you want to get raiding, and things are going to happen on our agenda, not yours. So they gave me the snip, and I was out of fire. Oh yeah, that's okay. There are a bunch of great guys in there. It was I think I was the asshole in that case. But anyways, running around as a higher level, I was probably 50 something, untagged or ungilded character. You're going to get requests to join, guilds that are trying to grow. And at that point, your listeners will probably know someone named Peter. Peter was a co-leader for Safe Space, and he was on a mad recruiting campaign. And I happened to be on the receiving end of that. So he sent me a message and said, hey, do you want to join Safe Space? So I ended up in Safe Space for a long while, actually. I was with them for a good amount of time. And then, you spend enough time with your guild, and you're either going to get along very well, or you're going to butt heads. And the leaders of Safe Space are interesting characters. I enjoy them. I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but I think that we clashed a little bit. We had a bit of a falling out, and then I said, okay, well, I'm going to pack up my things and I'm going to make my way over to Kingdom. And Kingdom was my final landing spot. So I currently playing Kingdom, level 60 over Shaman, got a bunch of alts and that kind of thing. But that's sort of my origin
Your
story.
potted history. Yeah,
That's right. That's how I ended up where I am today.
Your backstory.
Exactly.
Well, you've had quite the journey. Quite the journey. So you were mentioning raiding then.
Yeah.
Yes, you can see where I'm going with this one now, can't you?
I can, yeah, because raiding. How do you even discuss Project 1999 raiding? Because we're looking at a 25-year-old game, and it is the strangest little corner of the internet that you'll find. I mean, you have people that are so passionate about this game, and raiding makes up such a big part of it. There's so many things I want to talk about here. Like,
let's just pick one thing first, right? So as a new person coming in, because I am, I mean, the last time I played Everquest was about 20 years ago.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So, and now I've sort of rejoined a few weeks ago, and I'm hearing terms that I've not heard before. And one of the terms was the UN. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in the context of the recent GM event, actually, the one that was held yesterday. And people were talking about such and such as being said on the UN. What is the UN?
The UN. Okay. So it's probably a bit of a misnomer, being called the United Nations, because nothing about the UN is united. It is a very, very divisive place. And I think for us to have this discussion, we just need to accept the fact that the
people don't agree. Right.
People don't agree. Thank you. Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Right. So basically, this is a sort of meeting of minds, is it? Like a Discord chat room for a meeting of minds?
We'll call it a meeting of minds. That's probably being a little bit generous, but yeah, we'll call it a meeting of minds.
Okay.
So to anyone that's not been in the UN before, it is, there's a bunch of channels. It's a Discord channel. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of channels that here. Really, there's only a few that matter. You've got your general chat, of anyone can go in there and chat away with the GMs. The GMs will respond in there.
Oh, the GMs are in there.
Oh, certainly. The GMs, yeah, much to their dismay, I'm sure, because it really should just be a place called like where people go to cry about their EverQuest gripes. But they kind of sort things out within the UN. So you got general chat, and then what probably the most interesting part of this is raid petitions and raid concerns. Those two kind of go hand in hand. So
yeah,
from a raiding perspective, the reason that you'd need the UN, is if two guilds are going for the same target, if it's contested, cool, and one of the guilds does something unsavory or causes harm to another guild, they'll post it in raid concerns, and the GM's hope is that we'll sort it out amongst ourselves, which is physically impossible to ever happen. We can't sort things out like adults. That's just not how life works in Project 1999. So we'll defer. We'll drop a raid concern, and then if we can't get to the bottom of it, if it's a bad enough infringement, things will go to raid petitions, and then the GMs in there will look at the raid petitions. So there will be a petitioning guild saying, "Hey, other guild, you did this to us. Here's all our evidence." And then the guild being accused can respond. The GMs will look at the accusation and the response and decide, "Hey, what is the appropriate punishment here? What is their ruling?" And usually that takes the form of concessions. So meaning that whichever guild was ruled against probably is not able to go for that specific target for the next 2. So it's called the concede.
Right. Okay.
Yes. And if your viewers or if you get some time, I highly recommend looking at the raid petitions, because it's the elf lawyers at their best, getting in there and writing these kind of formal documents to try to say, hey, this is everything you did to us, and paint the most negative picture of the other guild. So, just by that state, it becomes very, very divisive, very tribal is the UN. So,
yeah. Oh, wow. That's a complete reflection of real world then. Really.
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to steal that, by the way. Elfin lawyers. I'm going to steal that. So.
Oh, I didn't come up with that. You go in. The elf lawyers are rampant in there.
Right. Brilliant. So that sounds absolutely fascinating, and now I am desperate to move on.
As am I. Unfortunately, I have the role of a speaker. So there's a channel in there called Speaker Only. There's a couple of representatives from each guild that can talk in that channel, and I have the curse of being one of them. So we certainly butt heads with the other speakers, but yeah, if I could move on from that, I would be a happier man.
Yeah, right. Okay. Let's talk about something else then. Pick a subject.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I complain about it, but I think that's just the nature of raiding and Project 1999. I think that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's happened for 25 years. There's always been contested mobs, hasn't there?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it speaks to the level of passion that people have for this game. It's been around for so long, and people are still getting up in arms about, hey, you trained us at our King Tormax, and we need to figure this out. Like, King Tormax does not matter in the real world, but it's you have an accumulation of players that are this passionate about it, and we need an outlet for our passion. But
I mean, it's the investment of time that people took to get to that target, the time they've set aside to play, that sort of thing. That's why people are, passionate about it as well, I think.
It is so tribal in there, and people understand it, but it's kind of neat to see the passion that people have. And this whole game is about the people that you play with. So at least it's a testament to people enjoying it still.
Well, of course. Yeah. You know, when you get buyer's remorse, and you think, oh, we'll talk about UN. That sounds really cute and fluffy. And now I'm thinking, oh my God.
Yeah, it's interesting in there for sure. And you end up, it's kind of interesting because the UN is, there's so much chat history in there, and people that have been around for so long, they understand things that have happened in the past. So people are unwilling to drop. People hold grudges is the best way I can say it. Like, for example, in Kingdom, when we woke the sleeper.
Oh, was it you guys that woke the sleeper? Was it?
Yeah, and the whole server kind of got up in arms. We're Kingdom, and anyone in Kingdom will tell you this. We're kind of the we're not liked by many people. I'll say, other guilds don't really like us, and I think that something like that probably holds some grudges, because once the sleeper's woken, it precludes loot, so warders no longer spawn in there. Which, if you're a high level monk and you want to get a particular piece from Sleeper's Tomb, you just can't get it anymore after it's woken. So love that.
Okay, yeah. Well, very naughty then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
every time I feel like I'm trying to get away from this, I'm picking another scab. So I think, talk about something nice, please. Leveling zones.
So one of the interesting things that the devs do for Project 1999 is that they'll shake up the ZEMs from time to time. That's the zone experience modifier. Yeah. And with their changes, just to give you an example, one of the zones may have 160% ZEM, meaning that you'll earn 160% of the experience you would in that zone versus another. So as they change those around, it kind of defines the landscape of where people are going to level. So a while back, I want to say a year and a half ago at this point. It's been a while since they changed it. But the hole used to be the top end, kind of the place you would go for 50 plus. And they made a change to the Zem there. They reduced it a little bit and moved Carter's Castle up a little bit. I can't remember if they moved that up or if they just lowered the hole. But by doing that, they really changed where people were going on their leveling highway, getting
their
60.
little path. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So now everyone kind of goes to Carter's Castle at the end of the game, and I personally am just not a fan of KC. The experience there is slow. The mobs have more HP, being Kunark mobs, and it's just you get into one of the camps, like one of the courtyard camps. And that is just, you could spend 8 hours there and get, I don't know, 10%. Like, it's just so slow. So I mean, that level 59 grind, if you're doing it in KC, Godspeed. I mean, that is a long time spent in KC. At least the loot there is a little bit better than the whole. Personally, let me drop a confession on you. And one of the reasons that I
got a second. Pause a second.
Here's a confession, and it's not anonymous. Whoops.
So one of my confessions, and one of the reasons I loved the hole so much, was the camps were interesting. The hole was a huge pain in the ass to get around in. But as you went deeper and deeper into the hole, you'd come across various camps. So you've got your entrance camp at the very beginning of the zone. A little bit further down, you had castle entrance. Past that, you had observatory, and then broken pillar, I think it was called, and then docks. And docks was kind of, I guess you could go past that to like Undead Tower and all this, but I would say docks was probably the most popular camp there. There was always a docks group. And one of the things I would like to do, because it is such a pain in the ass to get down, things see through and viz. And anyways, it was just a huge nuisance. But I would zone into the hole and put sow on myself, and it is sow for your listeners. It's not so Spirit of Wolf sow. We're making that. Yeah, we're calling it there. I know there's some contention around that term, but I just kind of send it. So enter or get into the hole and run as fast as I possibly could down through everything. And as you can imagine, that ends up with a bit of a train. And I'd run straight down to docks, and on the opposite side from where people would camp, I'd see if I could make it down there and sit and camp and get out before the train got me. And I did it successfully one time, and you can imagine the chaos that was coming to get me. God. But when that happens, and I'm guessing the only reason I got out was because so many people got the tail end of my train. But, I was in safe space at the time. So safe space, we're getting accused of training. But I think I managed to kill most everyone on the way down, which I don't know if it's a claim to fame, but hey, I'll drop that as a confession, because the docks group was fine. I made sure they were safe. That's where I was going. But everyone else,
they were fair game.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh no.
Definitely got some tells in guild being like, what the hell did you just do to me?
The whole idea of the confessional is to be anonymous,
That's okay. I'll own up to what I've done. If we're going that direction, one more that I'll drop is, and I guess they already know this. I mentioned at the beginning of this, is I was in safe space, and I had a couple of my tunes were tagged safe space. One that I just kind of forgot about playing, didn't care about. It was my enchanter. And they had an event. The GMs did an event. That was probably a year ago now, maybe 9 months ago. It forever became known as the Toxic Quake, because essentially the idea behind this event was that there's just no rules other than don't straight up train people. But what I did was, with my enchanter that was tagged safe space, I think it was actually Castle that was killing Avatar War or Vindy or one of those end mobs in Kale.
One of the biggies. Yep.
Yeah. So I logged on my enchanter that was tagged safe space and started memblaring their mob. And that, as you can expect, doesn't work out very well for, the tank is trying to hold aggro. But man, it certainly caused a nice wipe. And I was on my no-name character tag safe space, and the safe space was getting a lot of shit for that. So, anyways, I fessed up to that afterwards. But I always thought that was a fun one too. Really, really causing havoc in the raid scene there.
So I think it's up to the audience now whether they give you any absolution or not. So we'll leave it up to them.
Hey, I don't expect it. That's okay. Yeah.
Oh dear. So I'll let you know if we get any comments.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, thanks for those confessions. So what's the next thing on the list for you then?
I really actually don't think that platinum in this game is useful anymore once you hit a certain point. I think that if anyone wants to be a serious raider, you can get all the gear you need simply from raiding. Twinking, of course, is fun, so I think that anyone can get like a fungi and level with that. But I think Everquest is an interesting game in the sense of platinum is more overrated than people make it out to be. So, just my 2 cents on that. I think people get too hung up on making cash in this game, personally. So,
oh well, I don't make any cash, so what the hell?
Hey, I'm telling you, you don't need it, especially for. And you said you play a necromancer. It's
so you don't need any gear really for a necromancer. So
right, yeah. I mean, I think that if you're going to play a monk, or
there is some gear you need, but not to the level. I'm not waiting here for a full suit of armor or anything like that. It doesn't really,
Yeah, I gotta ask you. You said you played a gnome, right?
Yeah.
Why did you not go Ixar?
I
gotta know.
Well, I used to have a gnome necromancer in live a few years, 20 years ago.
Gotcha.
So I'm just reliving. That's all I'm doing.
Relive that.
Yeah. Now I know about the regen rates for Ixars and all that sort of stuff, and they're practically born on a field of bones, so that'll keep them in skellies for life.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh,
but I know all about that. But I've never really liked the Ixar model.
Yeah, fair enough.
I've always liked the ability to be a tinkerer as well. Okay.
That's so never gotten into is tinkering.
Yeah, so what really fascinated me was the aqualung stuff you could make and things like that. I don't know why I was fascinated by it or anything, but because I get dead man floating, and which has got enduring breath anyway. So. But it was just a little side thing that from about 20 years ago I was quite interested in, and it's just a hangover from that, really.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think that if you're absolutely looking to min-max the regeneration of the
if you go to min-max, you've just got to go for it.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're going to get it's not going to be impactful to you. But
no.
Gnomes come with a neat little advantage that you can, if you press your face. Yeah, exactly. You know the book,
push your face. Press your face through the wall. Yeah, and you can see through. Yeah.
Well, not only can you see through, but if you cast Eye of Zom or something that drops an eyeball, that's a key pulling technique. So when you press your face into the wall and cast Eye of Zom, it's going to drop your eyeball at the very beginning of the zone, which lets you start a train up as a necromancer. So that's a great benefit to being a gnome necromancer.
Ooh,
yeah.
I didn't know of this.
Yeah, it's the same concept with Call of the Hero. It's the magician ability that lets you summon people to them. That's used all the time. So as a gnome, you don't have to get a shrink. I mean, other people, if you're another race, you get a shrink and do that. But you push your face into the wall, it drops your Eye of Zom at the entrance. And if you're a magician, you can invite someone that's at the entrance and then cough them up right to you, which a very handy little perk of being a gnome. Yeah, so
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Next.
You mentioned the field of bone.
Yes.
And the amount of bone chips you get there. So with this faction guide we're talking about, part of becoming non-KOS in every starting city, obviously you have to deal with the lizards, and to do that, you need to hand in bone chips to guard trooper Mojo, trooper, something like that. A quick little name at the entrance of Cowless. Yeah, and I think that I handed in probably throughout my factioning, I've used upwards of 15,000 bone chips.
Oh my lord,
15,000 of them. I would say way over half of those were for Cowless. But the way I would get them is to go to Field of Bone and auction. Hey, I'm looking to buy bone chips, especially in Kern's Tower there, the little dungeon for low level Ixars. All those guys, because bone chips are dropping left and right. You go there and buy stacks and stacks and stacks of them. So you're absolutely right in the sense of, if you're a necromancer starting out there, you're going to have loads of bone chips. Yeah.
So I've got another question for you then, because I was just skimming through your faction guide here and it reminded me of something. So we've got the Worker Sledge Mallet quest, which gives you the over there port, if you like.
Yep.
So do you want to hear something funny? So
yes,
basically, so it was 2 levels ago. So it was level 37 and I went up to the undead, the undead worker or something. Undead foreman. Yeah. And I tried to charm him. Yeah.
Oh God, that was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a swift death, merciful.
Yeah, I mean that'll get you dead pretty quickly. What will happen is you'll have high level enchanters go and charm him and kill the cliff golems that patrol the entrance there, and those cliff golems can from time to time drop some high level spells, so you can get torpor off those guys. They drop level 60 up to level 60 Kunark spells. So
I was wondering why it's so popular. I keep on seeing these cliff golems running backwards and forwards, getting. Well, I'm not sure whether I know that they're either chasing someone or running away from someone. I can't.
Yeah, probably. As people hammer into OT, typically people just run right past them, so they're chasing somebody.
There's definitely something going on. It's a little bit.
Exactly. But yeah, it is a nice perk of being a necromancer where you don't have to work on that faction to get your worker sledge mallet. You can just, I'll say you should be probably 50 plus before you do this, because you got to charm him to hand in the jade, but you need to be amiable with him to turn that in and get your reward. And as soon as you charm something, it's instantly amiable. So nice little perk you had there.
Yeah, well, I'll have to wait until I'm 50 then. So
It'll come quick.
Yeah. Good. With regard to your faction work that you've done on the wiki for Project 1999, have you got any sort of quick takeaway that people can use that would be willing to share?
Sure. So one hot button faction is your SG faction, your Siren's Grotto. That is one that is unraisable. And I think that a lot of people are very concerned about killing anything in there because they're worried that they'll tank their SG faction and not be able to get from Cobalt Scar over to Western Wastes by doing that. Typically how it works right now is you can get a faction item called an OVP, an Ornate Velium Pendant. And if you go into SG and you use this OVP on one of the mobs there, it raises your faction of Sirens of the Grotto by 100. And all the mobs in SG are on that faction. So it makes it very easy. You use that, and then you can just swim right over to the Western Waste. Makes it nice and simple. But what happens is, because of that being in the game, people are very hesitant to kill in that zone, which it's an awesome zone. You have people solo in there all the time. It really is an underused zone, in my opinion. So people are paranoid about wrecking their SG faction, and I think that is absolutely the wrong way to go. I think that people should not be concerned about lowering that faction, even though it's unraisable. And the reason being is that I've actually got right in my guide there, in my faction guide, there's a little YouTube video that I put together that shows a very easy way of getting from the Cobalt Scar entrance of SG over to Western Wastes. I mean, it's such a tiny zone, but there's a couple mobs in your way. The way that you do it, just to paint a picture for you, is a lot of the things on land, almost everything on land, I think, actually, it doesn't see through invis. So you would just simply get an invis and you can run right past this first little group. But then part of getting over to Western Waste is you have to go in the water. And Project 1999, I don't know if this is how it was in live, but as soon as you jump out of the water, things are no longer, they won't chase you. Obviously, fish can't go out of water. So what you do is there's these 3 seahorses guarding a little cave you have to swim through. So you can pull them over to you. And if you watch the video, all of this will make perfect sense. Yeah. But you pull them over to you and then you hop back on the land. And then the neat trick in this is you hop back in the water because resetting, or by jumping out onto the land, it resets your aggro on these fish. So they're not going to come after you right away. But if you angle your camera kind of 45 degrees, maybe 60 degrees out of the water, so you're just skimming the surface, you can swim over the fish that you've now just pulled, and they won't aggro you. So I think the game thinks you're kind of out of the water, or I don't know exactly what it is, but they don't attack you. So you can swim past them. You can swim past them over the kind of the surface of the water and then down through the cave. And that's the whole thing. That right there is the reason that people cherish their SG faction so much, is to get past those guys, but it's just so unnecessary. So anyways, I figure I'd be remiss to not mention that, because I've come across just so many people that don't want to wreck their SG faction, and it's a shame to see that. So yeah, anyone can do it. You don't need that faction. You'll have maybe 1 mob attacking you, and if you're level 55 plus, you'll be just fine. So
brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Glumf. I will include it in the show notes and the link in everything. So thanks so much.
Yeah, it's right in there. So anyway.
Right then. So thanks very much for joining. I think we'll call it a wrap, and hopefully see you again with some more stuff to talk about.
I appreciate you having me. I came across your podcast on Reddit and thought, hey, this looks like a lot of fun. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the show. Subscribe and follow us on social media. All links are at richardsonsrubicon.com.